And good evening. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Tonight, 1 week away, Election Day now just 7 days out, and with it, important decisions on key races and issues across the state and Northeast Ohio.
It may not be a presidential election year, but there is plenty riding on these midterms. That includes the U.S. Senate seat of the retiring Rob Portman.
Tonight, the candidates Tim Ryan and J.D. Vance appeared for the final time at a town hall-style event in Columbus. And that's where our Lena Lai is for us tonight. Lena, good evening to you.
Good evening to both of you from Columbus. Yes, this town hall on Fox News Channel, a conservative-friendly network, which tells us that they drew from Republican and Democratic groups to choose audience members to ask questions. So tonight, we go through some of the highlights of this town hall and do some fact-checking. It was not a debate. Rather, each candidate took to the stage to answer questions from voters. But right from the start, Democratic candidate Congressman Tim Ryan was on defense.
And you called for defunding ICE. Why?
I absolutely never called for defunding ICE.
However, it became quite noticeable on the GOP-friendly network that the questions for Republican nominee J.D. Vance were not very challenging.
Do you believe in the integrity of Ohio's elections?
What are you going to do in the United States Senate to make sure that teachers are helped out?
Tell me about the most challenging manual labor job you ever held.
Vance, who previously struggled with explaining his stance on abortion exceptions, fully embraced a national 15-week abortion ban.
Simply, it provides reasonable exceptions, but it also sets a minimum national standard, and I think that that's a good idea.
Ryan, for his part, defended his vote on the Inflation Reduction Act, crediting the legislation for economic wins for Ohio.
Because once we passed that, we saw huge investments into the solar industry. Honda's putting a $4 billion battery plant there. We have a battery plant up in Youngstown.
Both candidates condemned the attack on the husband of House Speaker Nancy Pelosi.
Paul Pelosi was attacked by a person who's an illegal alien.
That we have not independently verified, but calling David DePape an illegal alien needs more context. Media outlets from the New York Post to the Washington Post report that DePape entered the U.S. legally from Canada in 2000, but that his visa expired.
You have said in the past that you would be for eliminating cash bail.
Well, what I'm talking about here is marijuana crimes. I think we need to legalize marijuana.
But this is what he told the ACLU back in 2019.
And we're seeing states end cash bail state by state. Would you support that nationally?
Yeah, I think the bail system is inherently unfair.
Right after the event, Vance exited through a back door without speaking to reporters. Ryan, however, did take a moment to speak with reporters. I did get a one-on-one with him, and we will dig deeper into the diverging opinions on their stance in Ukraine, which affects a lot of Ukrainian immigrants in Northeast Ohio. We will have more on that, as well as Vance's position, coming up this week on What's Next. Reporting live from Columbus, Lena Lai, 3 News.
A lot more to report on this. Lena, thank you so much.
And to talk more about this very important race, we are joined by our friend Mark Namick, 3 News contributor and managing editor at Signal Cleveland, the new nonprofit newsroom. Mark, it is great to see you.
Hey, I'm glad to be here, Russ. Thanks.
You've been following this race, obviously. What surprises you about it?
That it's remained this close, and that Tim Ryan has been fighting this race without the support, really, of national Democratic money. He has been a juggernaut in raising money, more than $40 million. And he's staying in there, at least according to the polls.
As we speak tonight, we are 1 week away from election. So 1 week from now, we will know who won this race. What should we look for from each candidate between now and then?
Well, let's start with Tim Ryan. He's going to stay very much on that message of I'm fighting for the workers. I've been, in some cases supportive of Donald Trump, because remember, he's trying to reach those Democrats that have migrated over to the Republican Party. And J.D. Vance is going to stick with a really strong message for Republicans that you've got to get the liberal out, and that he's been there for 20 years. He's had his chance. And now it's time for some new energy.
And again, this is one of the most expensive, most watched races in the country. All the marbles are up for grabs across the country in 1 week in terms of who's going to control the Senate.
Yeah, and any one of these races, whether it's in Georgia or here or elsewhere, could make a difference. But again, those Democrats were not really behind Ryan on this. He's expressed frustration openly on it, but he's had a little bit of support, but he's done it on his own with the money. And but we're still a Republican state, and I think you're going to see it remained tight until Tuesday.
Yeah. Do we know why the National Democratic Party was not behind Ryan to the point that he was satisfied with him?
I think they're looking at how red Ohio has become, period. I mean, they only have so much money to share and spread around to these close races. Ohio has fooled people. A Washington Post reporter had a great analogy. Ohio's become Lucy in the football, right? You think they're going to do it, and you pull it out, and Democrats go down. I mean, 8 percentage points in the last couple of races in the presidential race for the Republican side. That's why they've been leery, but Ryan can break the mold.
Interesting analogy. Okay, Mark Namick, we will see you throughout the course of the next week. It is fantastic to have you back.
Thank you for having me, Russ.